Welcome to the UBC Okanagan Master of Data Science Student and Alumni Panel event. We're really excited to provide more information about our program and answer any questions that you have. I want to emphasize that our goal here is to give you a feeling of what it's like to be a student inside UBC, specifically on the Okanagan campus, studying the Master of Data Science. We'll have other opportunities to discuss questions about admissions and course content related to admissions at another panel. So please, when you ask questions, our focus is on the student experience during this panel. There'll be another panel in December to provide more information. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that UBC Okanagan is situated in the territory of the Syilx Okanagan Nation and their peoples. I'd like to acknowledge that you are joining us today from many places, near and far, and acknowledge the traditional owners and caretakers of those lands. We have 3 people on our panel today, 2 alumni and a student currently in the program. So to get started, I would like each of them to have a chance to provide a background of who they are, and we'll talk about why they decided to do the program. I'm going to first start off with Liza. Liza comes to us as a graduate of Alumni from our very first year in 2018.
Hi, I'm Liza Wood. As Ramon mentioned, I was part of the first cohort of the program here at UBC Okanagan. My background, my educational background was engineering, so I started my career as an engineer. But before joining the program, I was actually a video game producer for 13 years, and I gave all that up and joined the program as part of the first cohort. And today I am director of data and production at a company called Two Hat here in Kelowna.
Thank you, Liza. I appreciate it. Our other alumni who graduated from our 2019 last year's cohort is Sneha. Please introduce yourself and provide some background.
Hi, my name is Sneha. As Ramon said, I was a part of the second cohort where I graduated in June 2019. So prior to pursuing my master's in data science, I had a prior engineering degree in electrical and computer engineering. So before taking the course, I was working as an electrical engineering in the States.
Great, thank you very much. And our student who's currently in the program, so you might have some great questions about how we've adapted to online learning in this environment, is Thomson. Please introduce yourself, Thomson.
Hi everyone, my name is Thomson. I'm currently in the Master of Data Science program in Kelowna. I'm living here in Kelowna, so I can speak to both the online transition and to what it's like to live here right now. I have a background in education, so I worked as a math and science teacher and then ran a small tutoring business for 7 years. And then after my daughter was born, I wanted to get a university degree. So I did an environmental science degree, just graduated from that as COVID hit in the spring. And I was looking for a way to differentiate myself in that market. I saw opportunities for the environmental consulting industry to go through more of a digital transformation and stop collecting data on pen and paper and to do more with all the data they had. And I wanted a program that would really challenge me to gain technical skills that could differentiate me in the market. And that's why I chose the Master of Data Science. It's also been my wife's and my dream to move back to the mountains for a lot of years. So the location was part of my decision as well, for sure.
Thank you, Thomson. And you started to answer that first question that we really have is, why do we want to study data science? And specifically, why would you want to study the Master of Data Science program at UBC Okanagan? So I'm going to let Liza comment on that first of all.
Well, as I mentioned, I started my career as an engineer, and I started as a quality engineer. So that's when I first discovered the power of data and the ability, and as well that I had a bit of a talent for slicing and dicing data with, back in the mid-90s, was really antiquated systems, not the tools that we have today. And so as a result of that, throughout my entire career, data always kind of played a common theme. And in my last position, where I was executive producer at Disney, I was receiving analysis and reports from a team of data scientists. And because of my technical background, I often found the mistakes within a couple minutes. And at which point it kind of got me thinking and going, wait, most executive producers don't have a technical background. They're receiving this analysis and will make decisions based off of this and not necessarily catch the errors or catch maybe the lack of understanding of the data. And that got me thinking of going, okay, hey, one, I've got this background and I have this interest, and two, there's an opportunity here. You know, I come with a business and engineering background, a business background, a production background, product background, and I have this interest in data, and there's an opportunity here to marry those two and as well provide some leadership in this really exciting emerging area that's revolutionizing how we work. And so that's what motivated me to apply. And for UBC Okanagan, well, I was already in Kelowna. So that was a big benefit. I was already here. I didn't have to move. And as well, like I have to say, being part of the first cohort was also exciting. Being able to start something here that I believed in and to foster this education here in Kelowna.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Sneha, what made you decide to go to the Okanagan campus for the Master of Data Science?
Yeah, so when I was researching for many universities before applying to Masters of Data Science, UBC, specifically MDS Okanagan, checked everything on my list. So with respect to coursework, with respect to the professors, and mostly it was an accelerated master's degree. So when I went through the coursework of the Okanagan campus specifically, the most important thing that attracted to me was the coursework that was designed mostly for, it was mostly for industry ready. It was like a package that would make me industry ready. And also the coursework was not just focused on technical skills. It was a mixture of technical and soft skills that would make me ready for the workforce. Coming to the professors checklist, the Okanagan has like the internationally renowned acclaimed professors who are pioneered in their own domains. Also, it was just a general note that Okanagan had like a small cohort size, which was very important and crucial to me because that would help me have a closer integration with the professors and have like high levels of interactions so that it would help me in a smooth transition from electrical engineering to data science. So that was my interest to choose and decide on MDS Okanagan.
Thank you. And you mentioned the small cohort. I really do have to echo it. In Lisa's year, the first year, I knew everyone so personally, and even going forward in all the years there, we're always under 40, whether it's online or in person or some combination. We have such ability to make connections with each other and the faculty. Thomson, do you want to follow up a little bit about why you chose the MDS? I know you started to discuss it before.
Yeah, so I'll touch on the small cohort as well, because it was an important factor in my decision, and I'm experiencing it right now. Even though we're all virtual, I know almost everybody's name who's in a program 8 weeks in. It is definitely a challenge to make those personal connections in this new environment. We're all still adapting to it, but it is still happening. And I think that I'm extra glad I picked this particular location in this particular time, because the intimacy of the cohort is there even through the challenges of being virtual. But to be honest, like for me, I mean, we've spoken, it's a cutting edge, program at a top tier university. You're going to get that in Vancouver or in Kelowna. But for me, like the lifestyle in Kelowna is unparalleled anywhere in Canada. I've lived in Vancouver, I've lived in Toronto, I've lived in rural Ontario. I've lived in other kinds of other places around the world, like Thailand and Malaysia and Cambodia. And in Kelowna, you've got this wonderful intersection of the lake and the mountains and the city. And so it's a relatively small city, but it's big enough that it's got everything that you want. It's very kid friendly. So anybody who's out there who has young kids or is thinking about starting a family, this is a great place to do it. It's certainly more affordable than Vancouver, but I think it's like more livable as well. Not only do you have to pay less, but I think you actually get more for it, because the ability to get outside and be somewhere beautiful within a few minutes of wherever you live in Kelowna is there. And the climate is fabulous. Like I moved here in May, and I don't think I had, a day without sunshine for the first 5 months that I lived here. The winter is a Canadian winter, but it's not as wet and gray as Vancouver, and it's not nearly as cold as almost anywhere else in Canada from what I hear. So far, it's mostly living up to that. So I think in terms of the environment that you're going to live in and the lifestyle that it facilitates, Kelowna is one of the best places in Canada to live, and it would be my choice over Vancouver any day.
Okay, thank you very much. And we'll talk a little bit more what it's like to live in Kelowna and the Okanagan region, because I know a lot of people have questions related to that. But I'm going to transition to a question on what are your favorite highlights of the program? And the ones who have went through it, you have the whole picture in terms of material, instructors, cohort, any sort of comments of what were your highlights? I'm going to start with Sneha on this question.
Sure. So the important highlight, as I said, the first thing that checked was the coursework that I was interested in. The coursework started from the basics of teaching. It started from the basics of programming, statistics, and then on, after going through the different blocks, I was able to. We were taught like lots of high level details of the coursework. So it was very systematic and organized for me to get along from the start till the end. That was my most favorite highlight of the program.
Okay, thank you. How about you, Lisa? What was your favorite highlight?
Yeah, the diversity. It covered a little bit of everything. Like we got introduced to a variety of different concepts, both from a like as Sneha said, statistical standpoint, programming, visualization, and even like the ethics and the privacy, security, and ethics course. Like we even covered that. Communication, how do you do storytelling with data? The fact that you touch on a little bit of everything, especially going into data science, like I knew it was a broad field, but I didn't have a specific specialization mind of like, I want to know this specific thing. And so this gave me the survey of like, what are the possibilities out there, and gave me that broad base on which I'm now able to build on my career going forward. And that was my favorite part of the program, and continues to be the part I value a year later.
Great, thank you for that answer. Thomson, I'm going to have you answer with the realization that you're in block 2. We divide up the courses into blocks, and I think he's missing class right now. So we really appreciate that he is attending this. But what you've seen so far, what's your highlights of the program?
So for me, so far the top 2 things are the pace and the people. Like I am loving how fast this program goes. It is really challenging to stay on top, but if you do stay on top, you learn a lot very quickly. And nobody really gets behind because the people are so great. Like when I'm struggling in one content area, because I don't have a programming background. So I'm struggling a little bit more in those courses, but I have peers who, when I reach out to them, are right there with me, helping me through the labs, helping me get prepared for the tests. And then I turn around and offer them other other content area expertise, even like planning how to study. Like I have a lot of background in education, so I know how to approach the learning experience in a productive and efficient way. And there's a real back and forth that helps everybody move along at the same pace, because I feel like there is a really strong cohesion in the small cohort we have here.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. And you answered the question I have next with what is the most challenging aspects related to that. Lisa, remembering back, I know it's been 2 years, but what do you remember that was the most challenging as you were going through the program?
It's funny because Thomson had mentioned about programming. While I have an engineering background, I hadn't done any programming since the mid-90s. And frankly, I'm going to admit, I really hated programming in Turbo Pascal back in the mid-90s. And so going in of like, oh man, like these are parts of my brain I hadn't used in way too many years that I care to declare. And so, going in and I went in cold, like I didn't prepare or anything. I'm just like, I'll figure this out. And to be able to go in and learn, like it is a fast pace and it does challenge you. But it was in a way though that was acknowledging, like, and Raymond, I remember our first class with you, like you acknowledged that we're all from different backgrounds. We all have different skills that we're coming in with, and it's just acknowledging that and then being able to bring us all along on that. So it was challenging, but it was done thoughtfully, and obviously that really worked well. So I'm going to say, and the other weird thing, and again for any of the mature students that are watching this, other weird things that I discovered is that as I went into management, I forgot how to read. So on like the first exam, I got a lot of wrong answers because I didn't read the question properly. So even silly things like that, I'm like, man, I don't even know how to read anymore. So I had to relearn how to do that.
I think that's a great point, and we're getting some questions in the Q&A right now related to programming and math and what do you need for a background. And everybody's a little bit different on that. Some people will come with a tech background, and the programming that you start off with, those courses aren't too bad because we're trying to get everybody exposed to programming. But then maybe you don't remember a lot of your math or your stats, and then those courses at the start off with, you'll have to do a little bit more work. The key thing is the program's designed in the first two blocks to get everybody up to what I would say the same pace or the same sort of background knowledge. So if you came in a little bit weaker in programming, you'll spend a little bit more time on those programming courses to get you up to speed. And same on the statistics side. You can't really say one is more important to the other. As a data scientist, you need to do both. And really the program is designed to train you up into that point. And there's also been some questions related to, should you do some background work? I think everyone on the panel would say, if you have some time to learn some Python or R or go back and review some stats, it'll definitely help you in terms of that. Sneha, what do you think about that? What's the most challenging aspects? And maybe twist your answer to say, did you do some pre-preparation for the program before you started?
Definitely, yes. I did some preparation because I knew that I was a little weaker on the statistical point of view because I had hands-on with programming. So I had to brush up my skills on distributions and probabilities and everything to get along with the pace. But still, it is covered in the course in the first two blocks, as you said. So it just makes us evenly have even knowledge over. But the most challenging thing that I felt during the course was time management, because of the intensity of the course that is going on. But after the first two blocks went on, I realized planning was the only key that would help overcome this particular challenge.
That's great, thank you. And I think really the summary there is the program's designed to get you up to speed regardless where you start off with, but any work you put in ahead of time will help you because it is an accelerated program and you want to be able to do that. A common question that I'm starting to see on the Q&A is related to jobs and how you compete with the MDS Okanagan program. We'll come back to answer some questions about that in a little bit. But I think as a summary, and maybe the panelists could nod their heads, that you could compete anywhere in the world. And many of our people stay in Kelowna, but not all of them. Because for instance, Liza, you're in Kelowna right now, but a lot of people go all over Vancouver, all over Canada and international. So we'll come back to that question. And I think it'll feed some of the other answers that you'll see as we go along. I want to go forward to talk about just the instructional environment. How supportive were your instructors and your fellow students when learning the material? Let's start off with Thomson because you're in it right now. How supportive is your fellow students and your instructors to help you through the program?
I would say very supportive. Yeah, so peers especially are important. Anybody who's been through a really technical undergraduate degree like engineering will know how important it is to band together and to work with each other to solve problems quickly. It is an accelerated program, and so the pace is intense and the demands are high. But the caliber of the peers is also very high, and so is the quality of the instruction. So one of my study buddies, one of the people I work most closely with, is not from a technical background. He has a bachelor's of commerce and didn't do a lot of prep before coming in. This is something I'd like to echo is really important. It's not necessary, but I highly recommend doing some Python, doing some R, and doing some stats review before you start the program, because he didn't, and he was really a little bit overwhelmed in the beginning. But and he had test anxiety, so he didn't do very well in some of the early exams. He was really struggling. And I know he reached out to you, Ramon, but I was also counseling him behind the scenes. And I would say that the message that he got from the individual instructors of the courses that he was struggling in, and from Ramon as well, is that if you are in this program and you are trying hard, you will succeed. Because you're chosen from a big pool of highly qualified candidates. If you've made it in, you deserve to be here. And this is a professional degree. It's the program's job to make sure that the students are successful as long as they are applying themselves as best they can. That's been the message from top to bottom, and it's been borne out by having makeup tests when things were extremely difficult and somebody needed a little bit of help to get over the line in terms of passing a particular course. But more than that, it's just the whole attitude of the program is driven. It seems like the attitude is that the goal is to drive student success and to make students successful. And that doesn't mean lowering the bar. It means building the environment in such a way that they'll get there.
I really like that answer. And that is really what the program is about. If you are accepted into this program, we want you to be successful. We want you to be able to compete for jobs and have the skills to go do whatever your dreams are related to data science. How about you, Lisa? What do you think about in terms of your support from your instructors and your fellow students?
It was excellent. I was just remembering back to my first block in the program, and like within the first week, study groups already started to form. So groups were already forming in terms of like, let's get together, let's study, let's review the material, helping each other out. So certainly as peers, like we were. It was pretty immediate. We started working together very quickly. And for the professors, like always at the end of a class, at least for the professors who left a couple minutes before the next one had to come in, like they were answering questions at the front of the class, and then as well inviting office hours and encouraging people to take the office hours. That is one of the benefits too of UBC Okanagan, is because it is smaller. You get to know all of your professors. And so it really is, it's a very supportive environment. And if you have questions, everybody's happy to answer, whether it be a professor or a fellow student.
Great, thank you. I'd like you to answer this as well, Sneha, because you've had an interesting experience. You were one of those people affected by the transition to COVID times right in the middle of March. All universities in Canada had this transition. How did that go for you? And how did that relate to the instructors and students supporting you in the program?
So during March, I think it was a transition from the in-person to live class, virtual classes. That was, it was just a span of 1 or 2 days. I think the professors were really quick enough to set up the material completely online. And there was no slightest of a difference. It's just that we see the professor on the screen, but then with respect to office hours, with respect to doubts clarification, or with respect to course material, everything was like the perfect thing. I wouldn't feel any difference between the online instruction and the live person. I was very happy with both kind of instructions. Also, even though we had live interactions with the virtual interactions with the professors, always encouraged us to take projects that were not academic wise also. So for example, going down during the last block, we had optimization and simulation courses. So there, it was not just focused on the coursework. He encouraged us to go and do outside projects, for example, in cases of deep learning or natural language processing as well. So we were guided through that, and professors were highly helpful in that way. With respect to peers, so we couldn't get much have much interaction in person. Like Liza said, we had formed study groups during the first part of the program. When it went virtual, we weren't able to do it, but then we always had this kind of peer programming session on Zoom, so we could exchange knowledge on programming and statistics as well. And since our program went virtual during the end of the course, so we were also having interactions for how to start with a job search, what would be the websites to go about, and all of that stuff. And in fact, my capstone also was virtual.
Great, thank you. It was a transition for everybody. I think that cohort and all the instructors involved did an excellent job in that transition. We learned a lot because we were forced to do it very quickly. In this current year, the classes are online, but labs you have the opportunity to attend in person. That's another one of the benefits of being in a smaller cohort. You can attend the labs and have study sessions in person if you're in the Okanagan, but you don't have to be. Because we're now also could be all virtual, you could do this program from anywhere else in the world and still have the same experience, just virtually, rather than having that physical presence as well. Well, thanks everybody on that. A very common question as well is, what is the intensity of the program? And you've mentioned that a little bit. But one of the very specific questions is, would you be able to work even part-time during this program? This is often a personal call, but the people who went through it, I want you to have a feedback on that. What do you think first, Lisa? Would you be able to work during this program?
Definitely not before the capstone. The pace, I would not recommend it. I do know there was one student in our class who did work part-time at Starbucks. But in terms of having a professional job where you've got deadlines and all of that, I would not recommend it because you're juggling a fairly fast-paced program. And if you're learning new skills on top of it, it's a lot. I would not recommend it. Once you're into the capstone, I even took a small contract during the capstone. You've got a bit more flexibility. So that I'd say is more of a personal decision because you still have to do the capstone project and give it your all as well. But at least you don't have the pressure of the schoolwork and the exams that you do during the first 8 months.
Great, thank you. How about you, Sneha? Did you think about working or would you have now you look back at it?
I don't think I would recommend anyone to work during the course because I think we would have because we had a lot of back-to-back assignments, quizzes, projects for every course. So I think the more we focus and get engaged in the program would make the best out of the program. And anyways, I think as Liza said, only during the capstone we find some free time to do maybe. And during that time we can decide on doing, well, it's a personal choice. But for now, definitely during the program, it's highly not recommended to do because we will have a lot of stuff to learn other than the coursework as well to get along with the so for example, when I told somebody would be weak in statistics and somebody would be weak in programming, so to bridge up to the level of industry, we would require time to focus on the program.
Yes, thank you. Thomson, you're in block 2. Did you have any thoughts about working during the program, especially when you're in it right now?
I did before starting the program. I thought, oh, maybe I'll take a couple of private tutoring students on the side. And I haven't done it because, well, for 2 reasons. One is I'm enjoying the program so much and I want to get as much as I can out of it. Like the learnings that are on offer are huge. And even if you can get the assignments done and pass the exams, if that's all you're doing, I think you're really missing out on a lot of the value proposition of the program. So just to echo what Sneha and Lisa already said, I think for some particular people, like if you have no kids and no boyfriend or girlfriend and you just need some like social outlet and to make a little bit of money, working like a shift job at Starbucks where you can pick up shifts or let them go depending on how busy your week is, maybe. But I still think that your time and your money is going to be better spent putting yourself fully into this program and making sure that you also do the things that you need to do to take care of yourself, have a social life as much as possible, get exercise, eat well, and stay connected to your friends and family while you're in the program because it is demanding and the stress levels, go up and down, but when they peak, they really peak. And so I think if I was going to counsel anybody going into the program who didn't absolutely have to work in order to make financial ends meet, I would say that, the value is going to be more the value you'll get in the long run is going to be more if you put that time and energy into school while it's in front of you. It's a very short program. So the opportunity cost of not working for 8 or 10 months, especially in a part-time job like a Starbucks job, is pretty small. And I think to echo what Lisa said, there's no way I would want to be running the business I was running before, even part-time in this program, because if any 2 deadlines or busy periods collide, it's going to be really stressful, more stressful than it's worth.
Well, thank you all. And I would like to follow it up because we've had some related questions on what the day looks like from a student's perspective. Your classes are Monday to Thursday, 9:30 to 12:30 Pacific time. And if you do labs in person, it's 1:30 to 3:30. That's your scheduled time. Now, what you have to do in terms of preparing for that and the studying is definitely on top of that. There are no classes on Friday. There's no exams. So you do have a 3-day weekend, but not that you're going skiing every weekend or anything like that. You will be working to do the preparation. And I want to echo what everybody says. It's an accelerated program. The goal is to get you back in the workforce as quick as possible. But in order to compete in the workforce, it's not just the degree, it's what you can do. And the more time you spend perfecting those skills during the program, the better. And this is your opportunity to soak up all the information, the skill sets that you can, So then you become one of those go-to people who have opportunities in the data science field. Go ahead, Lisa.
I figure I'd do the raise my hand thing. If you were to find yourself with spare time on your hands, if in this program, I would instead recommend spending that time taking on data science projects. Like there's a lot of resources available online, in data sets you can pull down and actually practice those skills in a more real life context while you're in the program. Because again, you've got the professors, you've got the students around you, like then you're basically practicing your craft before you graduate. And from a hiring manager point of view, now being on the other side of the desk, that actually makes you a more interesting candidate when you can talk about the projects that you did and things that you drove on your own time as well. So if you have time on your hands, that's what I would recommend doing during this program.
Thank you. We talked a little bit about what it's like to be a student. I'm going to let each one talk a little bit about that in their own words as well. I've mentioned what the schedule is, but if you have personal stories about what it was like being a student, while you're at that, do you think your background was suitable for the program? And would you like to study more before starting the MDS? I'm going to start off with Sneha this time.
Sure. My background, since it was in electrical engineering, I had a little experience with programming and the tech side of it, like the cloud technologies and everything, but not with the mathematical or the statistics point of view. So I definitely needed that kind of push up before coming into the program. Yeah, I did a little preparation on statistical analysis, statistical modeling, and probabilities and conditional probabilities and all that. That really helped me to catch up with the program with other people.
Great. Thomson, how about you? What's your daily schedule sort of look like, and was your background suitable for the program?
Yeah, so I'll start with my daily schedule. So I'm a mature student. I have a 4-year-old daughter. So I wake up at 6:30 and I spend 6:30 to 9 o'clock having family time, getting her to daycare. And so I sit down and start my work day, my school day at 9 o'clock local time. I basically spend from 9 o'clock to 4 o'clock every day dedicated to school. So I spend the morning going to class virtually, and I spend the afternoon mixed between working in my study groups to complete labs, study for tests, and attend the virtual lab sessions if I need help with any of the labs. There's great TAs, which haven't been spoken to, but I have to say there's 4 TAs. There's 3 TAs in the program this year, and they're all excellent. Like they're really helpful, very supportive, good communicators. They're on top of things. So it's not just the instructors, but the TAs are also excellent supports. So that's my day from 9 to 4 I call that like my work day, and that's 7 hours of time. That is not enough to get everything done in the day that I need to get done. So I usually take 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock to go pick up my daughter from school, bring her home, make dinner, eat dinner as a family. And then my wife is now usually getting her to bed, and I kind of around 7:30 or 8 o'clock, I go back to school, and I work from 8 o'clock till, around 10. Sometimes it's later, sometimes it's earlier, but I usually put another 2 or 3 hours in at night. So my total time spent each weekday is about 9 or 10 hours. And I'd say that's pretty consistent and that's sustainable. And I take time out of the day to go for a run or go rock climbing or walk my dog. Or sometimes I, take a little bit of time to make dinner, a fancy dinner for that night for the family. So there's flexibility in there, and there's enough time in that space to get all of my schoolwork done, basically. I keep that schedule on Friday, even though I don't have class. And then on the weekend, I put anywhere from 5 to 15 hours in on the weekend. 15 hours on a very heavy week, 5 hours, I would say minimum. And that's enough. Like I'm doing really well in the program. I'm feeling successful. I'm staying on top of things and I'm not getting behind except for one class. But for the most part, it's going really well. And that's a balanced and sustainable level of effort that I can make, even with a daughter, still spending time with her, with my wife. My marriage isn't falling apart. So that's what I'd say like my typical day looks like. And even though I'm virtual, I'm here in Kelowna, I'm really pretty much doing everything virtually, but I'm able to connect with my peers and work in study groups like Liza and Sneha did. That is happening over Zoom and in the various other technologies that are provided by the program. As for my preparation, I don't have a technical background in data science, but I had a little bit of engineering education before. I had some exposure to programming, and I just finished an undergrad in science. So I had the learning skills. I think that's really important. Like the soft skills like time management, planning, self-discipline, those are really important. Anybody who's had a professional career will have those things. And students who have been successful at the undergrad level in challenging degrees will also have those skills. As far as the hard skills like programming and statistics, I think, like I said before, doing a little bit of prep before you come to the program is a great idea, even if you have a background, a distant background, especially in some technical areas, because the more time you can spend learning the more challenging aspects of what the program has to offer, and the less time you spend just kind of like trying to figure out how to do a for loop in Python to get your lab done in time, the more you'll get out of the program. So I feel like my background was sufficient, but I still had to work really hard in that first block, because compared to some of the people who, you know, some of my peers have a PhD in computer science, and some other people have been doing data science in their job, kind of figuring it out on their own for the last 2 or 3 years, and are just kind of doing this degree in order to consolidate their work experience and get the, you know, the piece of paper that proves that they can do what they've already been doing professionally and help them do it more efficiently. So I wouldn't say I was in the top half of the technical skill set of my cohort, but I was still able to catch up by working really hard in that first block.
Okay, thank you. Related to that, there's been a couple questions. Lisa, when you comment on it, people are also asking, what was it like to be in industry, go back to school, and then what did that day like, and then now you're back in industry again? So maybe kind of draw some parallels, or this idea of in industry, going back to school, now back in industry, what did that look like, or what was that journey like for you?
Yeah, it was, there's part of me that's like, yeah, I was a little crazy doing this. So going from industry back to school, there's things that like you forget, especially the longer you've been out of school. Like I had mentioned before, I realized I didn't know how to read anymore, or at least not read in detail. And having that discipline, like just how to study and all of those things, like when you're in industry, you're constantly learning anyways, but you're very much learning on the fly, which is very different than having to learn and doing a project for school or writing an exam. Like those are skills you forget over the years. So those are all the skills that you kind of have to dust off and like, oh yeah, that's how that works. And to kind of get back into that groove. One of the things that is good coming from industry into school is, I mean, especially I was in management, I already had a packed schedule going into this program. So already having that discipline of, you know, keeping a schedule, staying on top of things, being able to manage multiple things, like those are skills that just transferred from industry back into school that I maybe didn't have to the same level of maturity when I did my undergrad. Like now it's just second nature. Then the transition back into industry, it took me a couple months to get a job. I enjoyed those couple months off. I took the opportunity to enjoy those couple months off. And then going back into industry, it was nice to have that break, frankly, for a year in between, where I could think about something different, you know, revisit, dust off skills that I hadn't used in years. And it was a good break, and it was a good reset before starting the next phase of my career. And so I really value that time that I had to have that transition period. And so, you know, approaching my new phase of my career with renewed vigor, which is kind of what I needed going into this program.
Thank you. That's really helpful. There's many students who are in your situation, who in a different field, they are considering a job change and they're wondering, what does this look like for me? So speaking to that is really important. And really that's what this program was designed for. It's not designed for people who have a computer science major or done a lot of data science before. Clearly that helps, but you can be in any career field that you want. The prerequisites are a programming course, a statistics course, and some basic mathematics. The more you work at it, the better you'll get at it. But the goal is for this degree is to be a general degree that allow people to do that job transition. There's been some questions related to the courses and the grading. I think I'll just answer that rather than pushing that out there. Each block of courses consists of 4 courses. Each course will have either 1 or 2 quizzes. I think the panel can all nod their heads. They realize that these go in a cycle. You basically have quizzes every 2 weeks is how that works out, because each block is only 4 or 5 weeks long. The first few blocks tend to have more quizzes than the last few. As you start to get more skills, that migrates. Thomson's excited about that because he doesn't realize that he's still in block 2. The first two blocks are about programming and stats, and let's make sure you've got the fundamentals and build it up. So there's much more quiz-based material then. By the time you hit blocks 3 and especially 4, now you're in visualization, you're in communication, all very important skills that you don't test with quizzes. You test with real-world examples, with projects, with group collaborations. So there's a multiple ways of how this is evaluated. And the capstone, there's no quizzes involved. Really, it comes down to, did you do something great for your client, and did you work well with them in anticipation of being effective in what you're doing? Another question that seems to be coming up a lot is MDS Okanagan more focused on the stat side? I know some of our marketing implies that we're more focused on the stat side than Vancouver, but I think students on the ground, it's not like one side's favored over the other, really, on that. The only thing that's really unique in terms of course content is we have an optimization course taught by one of the world's renowned experts in optimization. Because we have that local resource here, that course is in our program. But besides that, the programs in Vancouver and Okanagan work really well together, and we collaborate on the materials to make sure it is giving you the best possible outcome, regardless what university you attend to, what campus. I think I'm going to transition to the capstone on that. How was your capstone experience? Now, Thomson, you're not going to be answering this one because you're not there. The capstones occur May and June. And right now, I'm actually going through the process of recruiting the next set of capstone sponsors. We've had a great alumni come back, such as Liza, and sponsor capstone projects on the institutions they are currently at. I'm going to start off with Liza this time because you can talk about it as a student and as a capstone partner.
Yeah, my pleasure. I also want to hear Sneha's answer because she was on the project that I sponsored. So as a student, so my capstone was with the city of Kelowna, and it was analyzing bike share data. And as a citizen of Kelowna, who is also a cyclist, this actually really was like a personal passion of mine. And on it, like, I love the capstone project. It was working like with all the problems that come with real world data. Like, it was a real world problem with real world applications. And actually I had a kind of a moment of like, hey, I had an impact as I was driving along our streets the other night and realized that one of the things that had surfaced in our analysis was gaps in the bike lanes. And I noticed one of the gaps got closed. So I was like, oh, see, like that's, I mean, yes, I already knew it was on the city's priority list to do that, but our data also supported the fact that needed to be done, and to actually see like, oh, hey, they did the connection. There's a real world impact into to what we did. So that was my experience as a student, and I really valued the capstone project, and it's one of, I think, the biggest selling points of this program is you have 2 months to work on a real world project with real companies or with city governments or whoever is sponsoring the project. As a sponsor, I had a lot of fun. I got to admit, I had a lot of fun. I gave a challenging project to the team. They rose to the challenge, and it was a lot of fun working with them. And I'm going to hand it over to Sneha because, well, she was on the team, so I'd like to hear her perspective.
Yes, go ahead.
So as Liza mentioned, I did my capstone with Two Hat Security. She was a wonderful mentor, I must say. And we were involved, Two Hat Security, since they were mostly based on content moderation and to block all their harmful conversations on video game platforms. So we were involved in identifying patterns and metrics that could distinguish between toxic and non-toxic subreddit communities. So this project actually helped me to put in all my data analytical and data science skills that I learned through the program. At the end of the program, I was also exposed to natural language processing during my capstone, which helped me to expand my horizon of knowledge. So Liza was a very supportive mentor because she also integrated us along with the company. So I got to learn a lot of project management skills, and also had hands-on with cloud technologies as well, which made me kind of very confident to face any kind of interview. Also very confident with that. Thank you, Liza.
Great. I just want to follow up on some really important points you both made. The first thing is, one of the reasons people are looking at being in data science is because you can have an impact, whether that's a bike lane that gets added or changing a business or environmental or health. That's one of the really cool things about data science. And the capstone gets you a chance to experience that in a real world setting. The other thing is that the capstone is just one example of being plugged into the alumni network that you have, both at the Okanagan and UBC Vancouver together. The alumni can help each other in terms of searching for jobs, making contacts, skill building. And so that's another really benefit of being as part of a cohort-based model. Now, in terms of this year, I'm really excited. Last year, we had so many interesting projects. We had a lot related to medicine, and you could imagine that with COVID and everything, that's going to continue to be the case. One of our highlight projects last year was Statistics Canada and doing research on COVID and its spread in long-term care homes. We also have really good partnerships with our interior health and hospitals in the region, as well as lots of other organizations. And there are some questions about what it looks like and how this capstone works. Basically, the students mostly get to pick. You get to pick what the projects are. We often have lots of candidates. And then you get to rate which projects you want to be on. And then the placement happens based on a variety of factors. You're not responsible as a student for bringing in a capstone project, but we've had some people actually sponsor or find their own capstone partners to bring to the program in order to work with. Thomson, was the capstone project something you were interested in? Was that one of the major factors or one of the factors about attending this program?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's great to go to class and to learn the hard skills, but if you haven't applied them in like there's challenges that come from trying to apply these things in the real world that are really hard to replicate on a quiz or even in a group assignment. And then to have something that is that's big enough that you can talk about what you did, what the challenges were in a really kind of expansive and nuanced way during a job interview, I think is going to be really helpful. For me, this is the vehicle for my career change from education. And then I went into environment and I saw that I'm not the guy who's going to identify every bird species, and I actually don't want to be. I want to set myself apart in another way, but I need to be able to speak to my ability to actually tackle something big in a meaningful way. And the capstones, I think the capstone is going to give me an opportunity to do that. I also was excited by the opportunity to maybe bring something in. So as you know, Raymond, I'm reaching out to a former employer. So there's opportunities. It's like the program is supportive of you reaching out and trying to find something that's in your particular content area that you're interested in to bring something in. Don't know if it'll work out or not, but based on what I saw from last year's capstone presentations, there's like some pretty cool opportunities. And that's something else I'd recommend. I mean, anybody who's here in this, we got almost 50 people in this live right now. And I know people will watch the recorded sessions later. I highly encourage anybody who is coming into the program to go and watch the capstone presentations at the end of this year. You can see me present on whatever it is I do and everybody else. And for me, it really brought home the value of the program. Raymond, maybe those presentations were recorded this year because they were done on Zoom.
Yeah, the presentations were recorded. This is one of the benefits about being virtual.
Yeah.
You could participate in a lot more events, including the events that UBC Vancouver holds. Our career advisor basically makes those connections. So the programs are a lot more integrated now that we're virtual in terms of events. And our expectation is the capstone projects will be available to other students to see going forward because we'll do them virtually.
Maybe you could point participants from today towards the link from last year's, from the last cohort's presentation. Because for me, I can talk about my expectations for the capstone, but I think when you see what the students did last year on Liza and Sneha's project and others, you know, there was machine vision analysis of cherries, like it was so cool. And for me, I was already enrolled in the program and I'd made my deposit, but that got my juices going and got me motivated to do this Python course I did to prepare in the summer and gave me a bit of a vision of what I'm doing today that's going to lead to something even more meaningful 8 months from now. So capstone.
We'll try to make some of that available. I think some of the capstone projects could be available on video. We'll make that available to people. That's a very good point. We're getting lots of questions about jobs, obviously, because as a professional project or professional program, you're looking at future employment. I do want to emphasize that it's always what you put into it. Our job is to make you successful with the effort that you put in. I think Thomson articulated that really well last time. But I want to get from your perspective, after you went through the program, and Thomson, I know you're just starting right now, but did you feel like you had the skill sets to compete for jobs, whether it's in Kelowna, Vancouver, or anywhere else? And maybe speak for your own situation. I'll go with Liza first. What do you think about how this prepared you for jobs?
Well, I'm at a different point of my career, so for me it was a bit unusual situation. Like I'm not going to be applying for individual contributor, like junior data scientist jobs, because somebody would look at my resume and go, you were an executive producer, you now want to be a junior data scientist. There's a mismatch there. But for the jobs, knowing my background, knowing my job history, for the jobs I was targeting, yes, I felt prepared. And you know, I have to say, I would no different than a new grad in that I was a little intimidated by interviewing with the data scientists that I would be managing, because I figured they would ask me the tough questions. So I even studied up for that. But I was well prepared. You know, it ended up being a good conversation, and well, I got the job. So I did feel well prepared. And I think there's been some questions as well about like location. And that's the one thing that is the great COVID has been the great equalizer. Everybody's remote now. You're not confined to a geography, even in your job search. Like there's obviously some basis off of like, you know, immigration and legal and things like that. But, you know, now somebody could be living in Kelowna and working for a company in Vancouver or Toronto, or vice versa. You could be like, our company is hiring people from Toronto who are working for a company that's based out of Kelowna. It's the great equalizer now. And so you're not confined to location. The skills this program gives you, you decide where your strengths are, and then you can, you know, base your job search based off of those strengths. And so I think this program prepares you very, very well for that.
Great, thank you. How about you, Sneha? What's your opinion on how it prepared you for your job, and what skills are you using in your job? Maybe go back to that a little bit.
Yeah. So currently, when I'm working as a data scientist at Providence Healthcare. So like Ramon mentioned before, the optimization course that was taught at the last block of the course is like a huge benefit for me that I'm applying now. So the current work that I do is in operation research for medical industry, basically like prioritizing patients, and scheduling the lab technicians and all of them. So most of it is the operation research side of it, and I'm applying a lot of linear programming, mixed integer linear programming that were taught during the course. But to land in that job, I definitely needed SQL to do basics of SQL, Python, definitely Python, and some kind of visualizations. So my job is just not restricted to the optimization part of it. So I have to do some kind of visualizations, which I learned during the course, like the Tableau, Power BI, everything was learned. So that really helped me to get the job and the work that I'm doing now.
Great, thank you. One thing we do emphasize in our program is we just don't use open source tools. So we will use software like Tableau or Power BI or cloud-based solutions, because realistically, you'll be using all sorts of tools, free ones and commercial software that you have to be familiar with. I had another question about, does this program prepare you for a PhD? That's a different question. Normally, that's not the career path for this. If you're looking for a research-based program, you will want to apply to a research-based program. That being said, it's not uncommon, because in our 2018 cohort, Debanksha, who is currently a TA for the Master of Data Science, he is doing currently a master's, research-based master's in artificial intelligence. The degree is not designed for that sort of pathway if you're looking for a research pathway, the PhD, but it also doesn't hurt. And sometimes it can help if you get a chance to work on interesting projects like the capstone. We only have a few minutes left, so I only want to ask two questions. I'm going to start with the first one about what it was like living in Kelowna in terms of housing or anything else you want to come on to. And then we're going to ask one more wrap-up question. So I'm going to start off with Thomson. I think you mentioned this, but what is it like in terms of housing and the living environment in Kelowna?
So moving from Toronto to here, I went for about the same dollar value per month rental income. I went from a 1-bedroom plus den to a 3-bedroom with a full garage and 2 patios. So I'm loving that. I can walk my dog and my daughter 2 blocks to the lake, and I can drive 40 minutes to one of the top ski resorts in Canada. Like, I think it's awesome. I am totally happy with my move here. I've been trying to do it for years, and you know, my wife landed the job, the stars aligned, and that's part of why I'm in the program in this location, is specifically because I wanted to live in Kelowna. It's awesome. And I know people might be afraid of the cold, but if you're afraid of the cold, it's only because you've gotten used to the humidity. It works the other way around, I think.
Thank you. How about you, Sneha? What was it like being in the Okanagan for your MDS?
I should definitely agree to the fact what Thomson said, that Kelowna is really beautiful and very scenic. It has like a lot of beautiful vineyards to visit. Also, since the place is very small and it's like a small city with all the amenities that it has, it's easy to commute also, like not like the big city where we have a lot of traffic to worry about. It's just like, I used to stay in Rutland. It used to take 10 minutes to reach the school, and it's very nice to stay there. Very scenic. Yeah.
Thank you. How about you, Lisa? I know you've been here around a lot, and you were one of the people who were the coordinator for our social events too. Tell us about a little bit about Kelowna from your perspective.
Well, so I was one of the few people that actually grew up here. So I grew up in the Kelowna area, left for 24 years, did 2 laps of the continent, and came back at the end of 2016. So I can attest to like Thomson's experience moving from Toronto. I had lived in Toronto. I lived in Montreal immediately before moving back to Kelowna. And I can also support the statement of I prefer Kelowna over Vancouver because you get way more sunshine here. So living in Kelowna is exactly that. It is a big enough city that you've got now, that you've got a little bit of everything, but it is small enough. Like if it takes you more than 10 minutes to get anywhere, that's unusual. Like there's no such thing as a commute that's like what you have in big cities. You know, it's very easy to get to the outdoors. There's lots of things to do here and lots of areas to explore.
Great,
yeah. Well, I was just going to say, from a job point of view, we also have an emerging tech industry here too.
We do, which you're part of, and it's growing, and it's really exciting to have new businesses, new startups in the community. We only got about a few minutes left, but I want to basically end the panel with a very open-ended question to each of you, 30, 45 seconds. How was your MDS experience as a whole, and any thoughts or advice for students considering the MDS program? And I'm going to start with Lisa this time.
So I was actually talking with someone who's considering applying to the program last night, and he's debating on his data science journey. And I definitely spoke enthusiastically about the program. I think it's worth taking. But even more importantly, I think if you're considering a career change, getting into data science, now is the time to do it. Data is revolutionizing how we work, is revolutionizing, like there's data science for good. It's revolutionizing how we think about the world and the good that we can do in the world. And it's still early days where you can have an impact. And every month something new is coming out. There's something exciting coming out. This is a great time. If you have any interest whatsoever in data, this is the time to be part of that revolution.
Great, thank you. Quick comments from you, Sneha, about the program as a whole and any advice for students.
Sure. So MDS was supremely like a fulfilling journey for me till till date. Yes, the 10 months is intense, but yet it is rewarding. The only thing that I would like advise or like provide as a suggestion would be to prioritize your workload, communicate with your peers, take help. Never hesitate to ask help from the professors or peers, and make the most of the program. And I think that's one of the investment that I would never regret in my life.
Thank you very much. And Thomson, your experience so far, and any thoughts or advice to potential MDS students?
I would say go for it. Just do it. I think I agree with Lisa. I haven't worked in the data science world, but in every other industry I've worked in, from education to environmental consulting, I can see how the work and the company is innovating, the work is being pushed forward by innovations really around data science and computer technologies. And this is the time to get into it, and you can have an outsized impact and accelerate your career by gaining these skills. I would say organize your life around this program, not the other way around, and get prepared as much as you can before you come in. Do those preparatory courses on Coursera or on Code Academy for Python and for R and for stats. And then think about what you want to take out of this program so that you come into it with a guiding vision of like, what do I expect this program to do for me, but also be ready for change. I came in with an idea of what I was going to get out of this. And already I'm like scheming about programs I'm going to start with my peers. So, or companies I'm going to start with my peers. So, those would be my big pieces: is build your life around the program, not the other way around. Get prepared before you come, and then get ready to dream big.
Well, thank you, everyone. I want to thank all the panelists, Liza, Thomson, and Sneha, all your insights into the program. If you have any follow-up questions, please contact us at MDS UBC Okanagan. And any questions about admissions, there'll be a follow-up panel to do that. And please contact us as well. So thank you, everybody, for attending. And thank you to the panelists. Have a wonderful day today.